All right, we're back for a third Hammond collection video, the Corythosaurus, which is tagged as a 30th anniversary figure, despite being from JP3, but it is arguably also a creature that was in the original Jurassic Park. Very arguably. Really, the DPG marketing stuff is what pushed that idea in the first place. But there is a CO DNA vial that can be viewed in the film. I think it's probably intended to be Compsognathus, but it could be Corythosaurus because it all starts with a CO. And it's probably better for the park's roster to have a sixth herbivore species instead of like another tiny carnivore. Because we got Proceratosaurus, Stegosaurus, and then you get Compsognathus, and that's like three tiny ass carnivores, and it's very strange to have three of those in Jurassic Park's 15 species. Corythosaurus does look a lot better in the roster. Yeah, box does have a JP3 logo on the side, and we do get a little film screenshot on the back there with a little blurb. And yeah, we have a little render here of the Corythosaurus. A nice, convenient, translucent PNG form to compare with, too. I believe this is from DVD behind the scenes size charts or something. Not gonna lie, I've never owned Jurassic Park 3 in any form of media, so yeah. Standard mid-size Hammond collection packaging and figure. I feel like the Corythosaurus is kind of an underrated dinosaur in the franchise. It's got a very distinctive and unique color palette. The tail is interesting here with the spots from side to side not being mirrored. Huh, not sure if there's actual concept motivation for that, but it is interesting. This is, of course, one of the many, many hadrosaurs in film canon. There's what, 5? I think? We get Para and Corytho are seen directly in the films. Hadrosaurus and Maiasaur are confirmed by species cards, more or less, in Lost World. Edmontosaurus skull shows up in Lost World, and it's a Jurassic World species. I think that's everything. And then you get, of course, an additional ornithopod in the form of Iguanodon. Oh, and if you believe the holoscape species are actually the species exhibited in Jurassic World, which is what I actually lean towards, you get, I think, Nippanosaurus is like a Japanese Corythosaur-like hadrosaur. And then that also doubly confirms Hadrosaurus. So yeah, like 6 hadrosaurs in the franchise, maybe, in the film canon, plus Iguanodon for an additional 7 ornithopods. Pretty busy. Yeah, it would have been nice to see this again in one of the films. Like, it's one of those dinosaurs you never get a really good look at in the films. Because it only shows up really in the stampede scene. Close up, at least. And it's just, they're blurry and running constantly. You just don't get a good look at it. The creature as it appears in JWE has always been said by people to have some issues with design. That makes it not replicate the film creature. I've never been able to, like, confirm that, like, what the exact issues are. Because, again, the creature as it is in the film is blurry and hard to make out. So, you know. I guess the argument would be the render here is the clearest look you get at it, and I think part of the problem is probably the head shape is wrong in JWE, but that's going off of memory. All right, well, there's the figure out of the packaging. We've got a very well-defined head crest colorization there. The yellows and creams on the body, of course, like in the film. The very unique yellow splotch color palette for this guy's there. He still has the Parasaur's fat head problem. Although I feel like it's not as bad as the Para. I probably should grab the Para for comparison. Oh yeah, it's an improvement on the para for sure. Like the fat head syndrome is like look at the para, how fat his like cheeks are there, and then the Corytho is still fat, but they've definitely refined the way the head connects to like fix that a bit. Um, yeah, you could see the para head connects like way closer up on the skull, and then the Corythosaur has a head connection point that's further back here. Entirely different arm sculpt. Yeah, even like the hands are different here between these guys. Like the Para's wrists are straight and the Corythos are curved. Um, Feet might be the same. Yeah, I mean the feet are essentially the same. I'm sure some of this is just reworked or literally exactly the same pieces between the two. They're pretty similar. The legs aren't though. Oh, so here's one thing. The Corythosaurus has additional joints in the ankle, like or like the mid part of the foot here, because the ankle's up here. The para is just a solid singular piece. So even though the toes sculpt looks completely the same, the actual leg here is completely different. We've got this like scaled pattern on the Corythosaurus that's not present on the para. And then like these kind of knee pad looking scale sections are completely new. So yeah, actually it looks like the most of the sculpt is completely new. Probably the reused leg pieces are just like uh, they're just taking the original like files for the feet maybe and then redoing them. Just so it's a new piece that maybe uses the same original design files or something. That's my thought process. Let's snap the tail in here. Okay, so the asymmetric splotching on the tail actually connects up with the splotching on the body. Very interesting decision. Very strange. Huh. Yeah, I wonder if there's actually like design art that motivates that. So that's a curious one. I'm liking this figure more than I expected. Like I already liked the novelty of the Corythosaurus figure, but yeah, I mean the head is still pretty fat, but this is an improvement over the para for sure. We need a new para figure. Not gonna lie. Um, yeah, this is good. Okay, so the leg does have like the same kind of like ratcheting in the joints that the irritator had. It's worth noting. Also, balance on this guy is going to be interesting because of the like the para can balance on its hands and still look fairly natural and erect, but the Corythosaurus with its arms being folded, it's going to struggle to like stand on its hands without like being all the way down. Like if you want it vertical, it has to be standing on 2 feet, which it can do. Don't get me wrong. Like I have it standing right now in front of me. It's just not as well balanced um, as like some of the large theropods or something. But it's perfectly serviceable. Yeah, so his little duck mouth opens and pink tongue in there. I think this is a male Corythosaurus based on the film, which is an interesting thing to note. No stiff joints on this guy. The arms are like pretty loose, but I'll take like loose joints over completely stiff joints like on the irritator that we can't even touch. Um, if they're at least not so loose that the figure can't even stand, of course. And in this case, it's just the arms. Like I can deal with that. Tail again has a bendy wire in it. Pretty much what you'd expect there. Body length check, maybe, huh? Ooh, the tail's longer. Look at that. Look how much longer the tail on the Corythosaurus is over the Parasaur's disgustingly short tail. This is such an improvement to the Hadrosaur. Still a lot of room to grow, but like this is a much better Hadrosaur sculpt. Uh, so let's look at accuracy. They do a pretty good job here, I think, of... Oh, we also should talk about paint. Nails on the hands, not painted. Nails on the feet, painted. Dew claw, not painted. Or not present? You know, I don't even know if Hadrosaur should have dew claws, so, you know, fair play. The para does have a dew claw. It's kind of on the inside of the foot. Um, the Corythosaurus just doesn't seem to have one. And I have no idea if that matters. In terms of matching the film, I mean, it does a solid job. The pattern on the Corythosaurus is fairly complicated, so cutting corners is understandable. I mean, we've got like the subtle brown stripes on the back, on the back here on the orange or the yellow. We got the black outline, the gray underbody. Like the important details are basically captured. Huh. Yeah, like if you look at it this side so that it's like the same side, there's like the two stripes on the tail, which are kind of replicated from the render here, not one to one. But then like the way the striping is on the body is not like captured at all. You know, we got this section that comes down here, but like you can see on the render, oh, my mouse cursor doesn't capture here. You can see on the render how like the mid part here that comes down kind of splits into two and has kind of a hook to it, and that's just kind of not there. Maybe too fine of detail for them to bother with. I would say the crest is not quite right. It's got these like spots in the red here, right? But they're just white connecting with the white top part of the crest, and they should really be... Oh no, yeah, there should be white spots that come down like a melon, but there should be darker bits between the white, which are missing. The problem is not the white. The problem is the red of the crest doesn't have these little, doesn't get darker up near the top in between the sections like you can see on the render. Head shape looks kind of okay. The Corythosaur bill is pretty flat, at least seen from the side. I feel like the head should be more darker in general. The eye socket's pretty dark here on this figure, and I don't see raccoon eyes at all on the render, so I'm not convinced of that. Overall, though, it's not bad. It's also... So we do have shots from the film we can look at. So there's this one here in the background, which you can't really see that much detail. You can see the bill is maybe lighter. There really isn't like the same white from the bill like heading up to the head crest here on this image. But again, it's in the background. There's like no good shots of the Corythosaurus. Yeah, here's a good shot from the front. So you could see the head, like, yeah, these like wide cheeks should not be present. Like, basically the bill should be as wide as the head gets in general. So it's better than the para, but it is still far too wide. Yeah, it should be a fairly narrow head. The hands are basically look like what I'm seeing here. It's hard to tell for sure, you know, but looks about right. He looks weirdly fat in this image. Like, he looks like he's got a big fat belly roll hanging off here and then big fat chunky thighs. It's actually really weird looking at this now. And then this is probably the best shot you get, but it's just this one Corythosaurus up in the corner. Looks quite a lot like the render. Tail patterning looks a lot more complicated there. Yeah, and you can see like the darker spots on the crest and stuff. The facial detail is in general more complicated than the toy captures. I think this is probably a female because you can see on some of the Corythosauruses in the scene, the crest is much redder than others. Some of them have very red crests, and some of them have more of like an oranger crest. Orange, like almost down to just blending with the rest of the body colors. Like the crest doesn't actually stand out that much. And then, like, I think this one back here is a redder looking one. I don't see people talk about that, but I'm pretty sure there's male and female Corythosaurs in that scene. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of sexual dimorphism in the JP3 designs that the community just really doesn't talk about, like the Brachiosaurus. When you see like the four Brachiosaurs or whatever in the river scene, um, one of them has a bright red nose and the other three don't, because that's the bull and the other three are females. Um, that's very clear that there's one male Brachiosaurus and three females in that scene. That's 1,000% what's going on. And yet, there's a lot of parts of the community that treat the JP3 Brachio design as the male for the Jurassic Park female, and that's completely fucking nonsense. It's an entirely different variant with its own male and females. Like, yeah, I don't know why people don't dwell on that. It's kind of weird. Yeah, like there might be dimorphism in the paras in this scene too, but I've never really looked for it. So yeah, I don't think there's that much else to say about this figure. This is yet another figure where looking at it closely, it's going up in my rankings. I was thinking to be a bit further outside of things, lower on the tier list than I was thinking, but I'm much happier with this than I was expecting to be. Especially with how it improves on the para. Oh, here's another little detail I just noticed. The smooth curve of the back versus the para's like hump. Like the para has this like shoulder hump and then it kind of comes down and then you get back to the hips and there's like a second rise, whereas this is much smoother. There's like much more of a broad curve. There's still like a little bit of a divot in here before you get to the hips, but I think it looks more natural. The para's body looks kind of weird with the way that hump is. This is a good progression. If we could get like another parasaur with like this Corythosaurus proportions and body plan, just with like a head that isn't fat at all, that is like the correct width, that'd be really cool. Like, I'd be perfectly happy to lose the capability to move the head in exchange for the head not looking like shit, you know? Like, I don't really care about rotating or moving the head around when it just looks like it's bad anyway. Like, I'm only going to display it directly from the side because of how fat the head is. So why bother having it move? That's my takeaway, at least. So I was originally expecting this to basically slot in alongside the para somewhere. Probably ahead of it was my original thought for being a little bit more accurate to the film design, the box as it's supposed to be. Because the para we got is a Jurassic World para that's labeled as a Lost World para, and it's nonsense. But this has gone up, I think, substantially in my rankings here. I think this goes ahead of the Concavenator in the middle of B. I like this figure. This is solidly a liked figure, but it still just has some of the Hadrosaur issues that persist, so I can't put it too high. Accuracy is better than the Gallimimus figure it's next to, but I think the Gallimimus figure is nicer overall, even though it's the wrong Gallimimus, labeled Jurassic Park, but it's a Jurassic World era concept art design. Even it's not even a film design. That's got teeth and shit. But I just like that Galley figure. Really nice proportions on that Gallimimus. Yeah, I think I'm going to put the Corythosaurus here. I think it actually slots into B, completely blowing my expectations out of the water while still not being terribly high on the list. Good progress, though. You know, if we get like an Admonosaurus that continues to iterate on improving the design of Hadrosaurs here, that'd be pretty cool, because I do like me an Admonosaurus. Although we'd probably just get a random nonsense color scheme on it, but, you know, again, if it's a nice natural JP style era color scheme, we can just say that it's the InGen, you know, classic era Admonosaurus and not the Jurassic World one. But I would prefer it be the Jurassic World one because it's a good color design, like good color palette, good design for the Admonosaurus. It's a beautiful creature. Yeah, I think we can end that here. That actually kind of balances the tier list out a little bit more, coincidentally, too. Convenient. it, there's a distinct possibility that I might at some point have to fight against my urges for a balanced tier list. I'm not saying that I put this in B to balance the tier list. I do feel like it belongs there, but I am second guessing my motives because of like it balances the tier list out putting it in there. No, I think this is right. This is completely like for these three figures, I'm expecting to like the Metriacanthosaurus the most, but the Irritator the detailing was really nice, so he went up. The Metri stayed about where I expected. The Metri slotted in where I expected. I expected the Irritator to fall right behind the Metri, or maybe one spot ahead. I did not expect the Irritator to get ahead of film designs like it did. And then the Corythosaurus completely jumped a tier. The Corythosaurus jumped like 6 spots over where I guessed it would be in the ranking, basically. That's kind of astounding to me. So yeah, that's what it's gonna be. That's the spots. So yeah, until whatever the next video might be, which I have nothing ordered and nothing currently planned. We do need to find the small figures, so I might have to do some internet shopping for those. I would guess that's what we get next is we get the young Stegosaurus and young T-Rex figures. And yeah, I might want to jump on those. Oh, I never mentioned this too, but like some of these figures are apparently online exclusives now. Even on Target.com lists like the Metri and the Irritator, and I think they were both flagged as online only, as in not in stores. So if you've been keeping an eye on shelves to look for these, you might be shit out of luck. You might have to digitally order some of these figures that are out now, and going forward, you might have to digitally order some of these. I'm not happy with that. Like, I get it, but I like to see the figure on the shelf so that I can like look and at least survey part of the figure through the window on the box and look for like issues with paint jobs or damage or whatever, and pick the one that looks the best. Which I've done in the past and has made a difference. Like, I've definitely seen figures on the shelf where I could tell they were inferior to their neighbors. Like, oh well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, these things are always a pain in the ass to actually find in stores, so just Target giving up on that anyway is maybe not that big of a loss, unfortunately.